What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank you so much again for tuning in. We got a special episode today where we actually have Chris Sauls, who is the winner of the giveaway, here with us just to talk some NC State stuff today. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, sir. I love it.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Plenty to talk about if you're a State fan. I've been doing this for 36, going on 37 years now. So
Yep.
excited.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So first, wanted to kind of start off with those state fans who don't know you. So just kind of give a little bit of background on your NC State history. Just yeah, I mean, just kind of give an overall perspective on who you are, and especially from the state fan perspective.
Yeah, so I grew up in Garner. My whole family's State fans. So a little background on my story. My grandfather was a diehard State fan. Actually, worked at NC State in the woodworking shop. And I used to joke with him all the time that he used to never know when State was playing basketball or football. So I'd give him a call and say, "Hey, look, Granddad, the game's coming on at 6 o'clock tonight. Make sure you tune in to Channel 5." Before they had games on, ESPN and all these ACC network and stuff. And he'd miss a game if I didn't call him. He passed away in 2007, and I miss it. You never think you'll miss the things like that, but I miss it all the time. I'm getting kind of choked up here talking about it, so I won't talk about it too much. But yeah, that's I miss it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, and that's why too, Chris. I mean, I think for us, we had to pick that story just because it was such a cool story. I think it's one of those things that it just kind of it just shows for especially from a state fan perspective, just the family culture as well. It's so cool to see that. So definitely hats off to you for dedicating yourself to keeping your grandfather up to date on state sports. That's always a big thing. So
Yeah, man.
first of all, wanted to kind of first start talking about, I mean, obviously we're less than 50 days, even actually, I think even 40 days away from the start of football season, which I know we're all excited about, but, wanted to kind of first start off with, I mean, what's kind of your, when you think about, this upcoming season, what excites you about it? I mean, is it,
I mean, I think we've got a great linebacking core. I'm excited about that. Obviously, running back situation, I think Bam Knight's going to be huge for us. Looking forward to see
Mhm.
what he can do. Quarterback situation, whoever that is in that position, I'm sure that it'll be fine. I'm a Dave Doran fan. I know some people are not. I'm a Doran fan. I think he has not only what it takes to get things done on the field, but also off the field, mentoring these young guys and getting them prepared for life. And I think that's huge
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm curious. Like, is that your favorite sport? Is it football? Do you like? Is you big? I mean, is it state athletics all around? I'm guessing generally, but if you had to pick like a few, is it just football, basketball, or is baseball more important to you, or what do you think?
So I grew up a baseball fan. I played baseball for probably 12 to 15 years, a little bit in high school. But basketball and football are probably my two main sports. I follow baseball, lightly until it gets deeper into the season. Only because I'm so involved with my son's little league team. It
That's cool.
consumes a lot of my time, like babysitting, little kids all the time. So, but I enjoy that too. So,
Yeah, I know. I'm curious. Like, I for me, I'm really excited about this season. I'm also just kind of curious what you think. Kind of like a rundown, what you think the season's going to look like. I know you mentioned you highlight those players, but I'm just curious what you think that football season's going to be like. And then, talk about some other sports here in a little bit. But what do you, since we're already talking about that, what do you think it was going to look like?
I'm a state fan, man. So I set my bar high, and I don't try to get too overexcited. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this 36, 37 years. I'm always optimistic, but I'm also realist. I don't believe in NC State stuff, crap, whatever you want to call it. But I know that I'm looking for a 9-win season or so. I mean, I think that'd
Okay.
be a great year.
Because I know you were just saying that you're basically a big Dorn, fan. So was there a moment in his tenure that kind of stands out as like the moment like that just kind of bought you in on Doran per se? Like, like if it was there a moment, or would you say it was just more just kind of his overall work?
I think it's overall, man. It's his overall work. Like I said, I don't think it's just on the field stuff. It's off the field. I think the guys, the recruits like him. I think he's built a great staff.
Yep.
For the most part, retained a great staff, and I think the players, buy into his system,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just a fan of him.
So over the last couple of years per se, one of the biggest things which has definitely stood out is, I think for me, is for Coach Doran, is his consistency, overall, because, especially when it comes to football overall, state football overall has had a tendency to, just like you were saying, win some big games, have some big upsets, but also have some bad losses. But I think overall with Doran, you kind of see that consistency where he beats his teams most of the time that he's supposed to beat, and unfortunately loses teams, but that we weren't supposed to beat anyway. But I mean, looking back, would you say that there was maybe a favorite game to you? Obviously, I'm sure beating Carolina is always a great thing.
That's all. That's always number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the one that stands out, the most for me is the Louisville night game. I can't remember what year it was. Maybe 2017 or 2018. Me and my wife went to that game. She actually grew up a Carolina fan. She's now a State fan. Actually worked for
Oh,
NC
really?
State
That's big
for a couple
news.
years. Oh yeah, man. It was either Chris or Carolina, and she's here now. So I don't know.
That's awesome.
I love that. I love that. No, that's perfect. So kind of transitioning here to basketball. So obviously, big off season for sure. Keep holding on to Manny Bates. What's your overall kind of viewpoint on Coach Keats and what he's done so far with the program?
I think Coach Keats is great. I'm a huge fan of Coach Keats, and I think he's built a great roster. I think he's got some good incoming talent. I was a little disappointed with the Shaquille Moore decision to transfer. But that's just the nature of basketball today in 2021. I mean, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. It'll probably get a lot more different in my lifetime. But I think you build with the guys you have, build a culture around the kids you have, and you do the best you can with what you have.
Yeah. I want to take a quick second here and give a shout out to our sponsors, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered with agents in 5 offices throughout East North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to help find a comprehensive solution that works for you. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
So
yeah, so let me ask you this question. If we're kind of in the same vein, if you're talking about these young players, we mentioned Cam Hayes and Shaquille Moore. We've also got like Sebron. We've got some of the new guys coming in, Breon Pass. You've got DeQuavian Smith. You've got a bunch of those guys, Ernest Ross. It's a pretty young roster for the most part.
right,
It's pretty young. So you got the thought is, Helms is probably going to be the guy. It's going to be his team, him and Bates. And so beyond that, it's pretty young. What are your thoughts on that as, going into this season?
I think we're going to have some guys. I feel like the bench. I don't think it's as big as I would like it to be, and as deep. But I think we've got some guys that can probably come off the bench, and maybe the lineup may not take a step back. Maybe we can maintain, get some guys some rest during the game. As far as Cam Hayes, I think he's great. He's lightning quick. I think he progressed a lot during his freshman campaign. Breon Pass coming in, and especially Manny Bates coming back. I mean, I think he's going to be a force this year, just like he was last year. I mean, you would think that you can't get any better blocking shots, but Manny Bates, I mean, he's a man among boys out there. I mean, he just is.
Oh yeah, we've highlighted that to some of our previous interviews where we're talking about it. And our interviews discussions, we're talking about how Manny right now, if he were to stay all 4 years, he would completely obliterate the block record, and it wouldn't even be close. Because I know it would take him like a few games into his senior season to tie BJ's all-time record.
Right.
So, but for me, I'm we talked about this a little bit, and I don't know if you kind of get this vibe too. Is I feel like this is a season that Keats is going to have to make the NCAA tournament. Because I feel like for so long, the first season was his best season. We've talked about this, and going into it,
right.
It's a young roster. He's lost DJ Funderburk. He's lost Devin Daniels. He's lost Braxton Beverly, and those are 3 seniors for the most part. I mean, and I'm just thinking if he's got a young roster having to, I think in a critical year where he has to make the NCAA tournament, big dance. Do you feel like that's pressure on him? Do you get that same sense as we do, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like there's pressure all across the board. I mean, I think there's pressure on the guys. I mean, obviously, you come in with a coach, freshman, sophomore season. You want to be with that coach for the entirety of your career, whether that be 3, 4, 5 years. As far as Jericho Helms goes, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, man. I was a critic to start with. I think there were some errant shots that were taken. No offense, Jericho, if you watch this, but I'm a fan now. I'm on that bandwagon. I think Jericho stepped up in a tremendous fashion, especially after Daniels went out last year. And I think he proved that he can be that guy. And I think, quite frankly, we're going to have him this year.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, no, again, well, he's somebody who wouldn't necessarily be, Mr. Highlight Reel per se, but he's somebody that you can count on, which is a big thing,
Right.
especially in basketball. When things are going south, that you can put the ball in his hands and he can make a play for you. Absolutely. So kind of taking a look back, NC State. Obviously we've had many big names come to NC State, at least for us. Maybe not necessarily like nationwide or even ACC wide, but to us are big names. Do you have like if you had to pick like one favorite basketball player and one favorite football player, who would you say?
All right, man. Basketball's got to be Julius Hodge, man.
Good answer.
The Jules from Harlem. If you're scared, get a dog. The whole 9 yards, man. Jules is my man. So, as far as football, I'd probably say T.A. McClendon. Just was a huge fan of
Hmm.
his coming out of high school, and um, let's see, man. There's a couple others. Philip Rivers,
Mm-hmm.
Nate
So
Irvin.
let me ask you this question: When did you go to state? Let me ask you that question.
I didn't go to state, so man, I grew
Oh,
up
you
a
didn't? Okay.
huge state fan. It's like I was saying earlier before we started. I I was more or less interested in hunting, fishing, and doing everything else that was more important in school that I thought at that time. So
Yeah,
I didn't go to state. I'm just a huge
that's
fan.
okay. Yeah, that's cool. I was asking. The reason why I asked is because it sounded like you were a student from a certain window of time,
Yeah.
kind of certain ballpark, and that's why I figured. Because I was like, if you got T.A. McClendon, Philip Rivers, Julius Hodge, I'm like,
Mm.
okay, he's got to have gone to school right around when all those guys were there. That's
It
why
would
I
it
ask.
it would have been around that time. So
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, so in terms of other sports, I mean, obviously with baseball, obviously just got off finished here, but I think for us, and we actually asked this earlier, and I think it's actually maybe an interesting question to ask for you. So for baseball, so if you were given the option, like looking at like Duke per se, who won the ACC title, but then lost in the regionals, but then for us, where we lost the ACC championship but made it to Omaha, would you, if you would have rather had it an ACC title, losing in the regionals, or making it to Omaha and losing the ACC championship, which would you rather have if you got to pick?
I kind of knew I was going to get this question because I was watching some of your previous recordings. So
Yeah.
um, for me personally, I would have loved to had an ACC championship. I haven't experienced anything like that that I can remember. I mean,
Mhm.
I couldn't tell you when the last one was. I've got a son that's 9 years old. He's a diehard state fan, and I I hope he doesn't have to grow up like I did, not seeing anything
Yeah.
significant. One,
Mhm.
but hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
But I would love to see an ACC championship in one of the major sports. Women's basketball is doing great. I follow them as
Mhm.
well, but I'd love
Yep.
to see one in baseball, basketball, or football.
Yeah. And I mean, if you had to pick between, because speaking of probably that same recording, that we also asked the same question, I'll ask it to you. So between, football, men's basketball, and baseball, if you had to guess, which one would you say wins ACC title first?
Probably baseball. I would say baseball, and that's not just based off of this past season. I think baseball is obviously there's more games to be played. I think there's just I think baseball has a better chance of doing that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I can get on board with that a little bit. I feel like as close as Avon has been, so he's been there 6 times to the
Right.
championship game. He just hasn't gotten it. The other teams haven't gotten there in forever. I mean, I know there's been some times we've made it to the semifinals in the AC tournament, and we've made it to there's a back that infamous game we lost to Maryland 10 years ago, and we couldn't play for a ACC title in football.
Mhm.
But I tend to agree with you. I think baseball is really close, and I'm just curious. You mentioned the championships, and we should talk about that. But in general, for football, basketball, we can baseball too. what do you think it's going to take for those programs to get? Let me rephrase this. Where do you think? Where do you see them in like 5, 10 years from now as a program? And then what do you think it's going to take for them to get to that next step to win the championships, to become a, I won't say a perennial top 25 team. I feel like we're like always like a fringe top 25 team and never like, oh, they are always there. They are always they're a name. And I feel like we are, but just not to. What do you think it's going to take for those programs to get there?
I don't know, man. Recruits.
Okay.
Not to say that a 1, 2, 3 star recruit can't be a 5-star recruit coming out of college, but you can't. I think you've got to have something that's built over a couple years, and I think you have to be able to develop guys. I think you've got to be able to bring in top talent, retain
Mhm.
coaches, whether it be head coaches, assistant coaches, and build some trust with these players that are incoming. That, hey, this coach is going to stick around and they're looking to build something. I think that's what it's going to take. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what the sport is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think of the concept of like how, the coaches aren't the only ones out there playing the game. They're
Right.
coaching, but they're the ones making the plays. So it's like they have, a lot of coaches. There's some great coaches out there. I think Doran's a really good coach, and they've really coached up players well. You can clearly see the development from the 3-star guys to being, 5-star quality players. Like you can bring them into campus, but once they get there, they've heard the saying stars don't matter anymore. And I feel they've done a really good job. I can just imagine if they get those guys they're getting the 4 stars. Imagine if it's like half the program, half the class is a 4-star class. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think about that, and I tend to agree. I think there's things like you can argue like the money side of things, which we don't have like Clemson is loaded with money and football program. They've just pour all that, so that kind of helps them out too. I think about um obviously coaching. Sometimes it's getting lucky a little bit. Like
Yeah.
sometimes things
Oh, yeah.
just got to go your way. So that's interesting. Your first thought was recruits. It's a good point.
Yep. But in terms of obviously with upgrades wise, obviously with football, so we are actually working on some upgrades right now to the football stadium, which will be in place for the first game against USF with upgrading the bleachers on the Murphy Center side, getting rid of the bleachers on the big scoreboard side, and like kind of putting in more of like a party zone per se, something like that over there. But obviously there's a lot of push for baseball right now. But what would you say kind of maybe the priorities should be in your eyes in terms of upgrades to the facilities?
I'll be honest with you. I'd love to get out of PNC. I'd love to see NC State build
Mm.
something somewhere that's dedicated to basketball. I grew up going to Reynolds, and I know you got to have bigger facilities, means bigger money, more money coming in to support athletics. But I would love to see NC State build a basketball arena. Now, how many of that seats, I don't know, but I'd love to
Yeah.
see that.
I could see something like that happening if they wanted to. Like, people like, where would they do it? I think at this point, I think Centennial would be a great choice. There's a
Yeah,
lot of open area out there, so it's still on campus and it would still tie it into the. But main campus it's getting so small now. It's getting
right.
so tight, so it's hard to find those spaces. PNC is great. I think State owns it and leases it out to the Hurricanes, if I'm not mistaken, something to that effect. But yeah, some people say, well, but won't you build it more towards downtown? Well, then is the crowd who would rather have it on campus. So it's
Right.
Yep.
I feel like if you're going to do that, Centennial's a good spot. But that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yep. So kind of wanted to ask kind of a couple, you know, blitz kind of questions of sort, kind of quick questions of a sort. So first of all,
Okay.
one question we've always asked, most players that we've interviewed, and we'll ask you. So when it comes to football, so what would you say your favorite uniform combination is? Let's go for it.
I knew where Leighton was going with this question.
I like the all red, going all red.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely one. And especially with my experience with football managing, unfortunately, Doran is a very superstitious guy. And I think that he had way too many losses in that all red. I think it's going to take a while for him to get enough pressure to bring that back. But yeah, I mean, it,
Right.
yeah, I mean, definitely look back like in 2014 playing FSU in the all red. Oh yeah, it's a sweet uniform combination for sure. But I'm actually happy you didn't say the all black against Louisville, just to kind of change it up a little bit, because I do think the all red's
Okay.
kind of been slept. And then besides the main ones, and I would say women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, and football, which are, killing it right now. Is there any other sports, within this athletics that you would say that maybe you follow more than the average state fan?
So over the last 4 to 5 years, man, I've kind of kept up with wrestling. I mean, it's hard to ignore what those guys have
Oh,
done, what coach has done, and I mean they're on fire. I think they actually got another recruit. Maybe it was yesterday or today. I was looking into it, and
Yep.
they're on fire. I mean,
Yep.
got a good thing going.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap it up, one kind of fun question. I'm sure being a state fan, you've had your share of Howling Cow ice cream. So what's the go-to flavor?
Oh yeah, cookies and cream, man. Got to go cookies and cream.
Yep.
I gotta ask one question. Are those Reynolds Coliseum benches your seats you're sitting on?
They are. I was wondering if anybody was going to notice that. So,
I was going to ask that. I was like, well, I don't know why we haven't asked that question yet.
Yeah. So.
Ooh.
Man, take a look at those guys. Man, that's awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, picked them up at an auction for like $30.
That is awesome.
Good for you, Chris.
For $30 too. That's even more awesome.
That's a dire state fan right there. Awesome.
Yeah, man.
So do you watch state games on those seats?
I don't. I try to stay off of them because I don't want to mess them up. This is a special occasion, so I'm on them. So.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we're honored.
Honored. Love it. Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, for tuning in with us. And please make sure, again, for those who are watching, make sure to also don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate the support there. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Tuffy Talk Now. Like this video, check out our other content, and join us next time. Thank you so much. As always, go Pack.